Welcome back to Success in Mind. What if overthinking is the single most expensive habit in your business? And I don't just mean money. Overthinking drains your time, your energy, your creativity. It stalls opportunities. And the worst part about it, most of the time, you might not even realize you're doing it because it feels like work. It feels like you're doing something productive. So today I want to pull back the curtain on the hidden cost of overthinking. I'll show you why clarity always beats perfection and guide you through a simple exercise you can use anytime you get stuck in your head. Let's go. Okay, here's the thing. Overthinking is sneaky. It wears a disguise. It tells you that you're being careful, you're being strategic or thorough. But most of the time, it is just fear wrapped up in a neat bow of productivity. And I've been there. When I first launched this podcast, I didn't overthink it at all. In fact, I really didn't think anyone would listen to this show. I had zero expectations, and that freedom meant that I could hit the record button and just let it flow. And because I moved fast, this show took off in a way that I could never have planned. In fact, if I had planned for it, I'd probably still be overthinking it 10 years later, and I never would have launched. Now, later in business and several times in my business, I had a very different experience. I had an idea for a program that I knew would be successful, but instead of acting on it, I started perfecting it. I spent weeks just working on the name, rewriting the outlines, and just waiting for the perfect time to launch it. And by the time I felt like I could finally do it, another coach in my network launched almost the exact same offer. And I knew I could have been first. I knew it would have succeeded. And that delay cost me revenue. It cost me money, but something even more valuable, it cost me momentum. And that's what overthinking is stealing from you. Every day when you delay a decision, you pay a tax in missed opportunities. You burn creative energy, keeping all of those open loops spinning in your head. Think of your computer running with multiple tabs open all the time. It gets slow. Or your phone, if you never close your apps, which I am guilty of doing all the time, it slows it down. And the worst of all is that you reinforce a habit of hesitation. You see, the truth is that inaction costs you a lot more than mistakes ever will. You can recover from the wrong decision. You can't recover from time wasted waiting for perfect. And if you're not sure if this is you, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. And I want you to trust the first answer that comes to mind. Now, when you think of this question, when I ask it to you, I want you to think in the context of being inside your business, how you are working in your business. Okay, so thinking inside the context of business only, don't think about how you show up in your family. Don't think about how you are at home with your friends, shopping, any other context. Put yourself in the context of running your business. And the question is, if you're about to start a new project, do you take action right away? Or do you do a detailed study of all the consequences and then act? That's the question. Now, your first immediate answer, do you act quickly or do you do a detailed study of all the consequences? First reaction. And be honest with yourself. If your first reaction is you take action, you're an active person. You're good. You take action quickly. If you do a detailed study of all the consequences and then act, you are what we call in NLP reflective, meaning that you probably overthink things too much. It takes you too long to act. And there's plus and minuses to both. If you are an active person, you will make mistakes a lot faster. You'll probably make more mistakes than a reflective person. But guess what? You will also take action quickly to correct those mistakes. So it's not that big of a deal. Whereas the reflective person will take a very, very long time to ever take action and will miss the opportunity to act. Now, if you are someone who says, well, I do both in my business, sometimes I act quickly, sometimes I take a long time to act, then you are what we call both, which means there's probably some work to do, but you're able to take action sometimes. Now, if you're a person who never takes action, then you're what we would call inactive. And you're probably not listening to this podcast if that was you, because you probably would not even have a business because you would still be thinking about it. In fact, very few people in the world are completely inactive, and they're the kind of people who, at 40 years old, are still living at home. They never left. They never went to school. They never got a job. They never started a business. They do nothing. They're doing nothing. So, probably not any of you listening to the podcast. People listening to this show are probably either active or reflective, or maybe a bit of both. Now, very few people are both. You're more likely to be active or reflective than both. So be honest with yourself. And which one are you? Are you active or reflective? Now, there's nothing wrong with being reflective. It does mean you make fewer mistakes, but it means that you're missing out on opportunities. So that's where it becomes problematic. And as an entrepreneur, being active is far more advantageous than being reflective. So how do we break out of this overthinking loop? You don't need more information. You don't need a perfect plan. And in fact, the perfect plan doesn't exist. What you need is clarity. And clarity is different from perfection. Clarity isn't, I have every answer. Clarity is, I know my next best step. So here are 3 shifts that helped me to move from being reflective and overthinking to being more active and taking those action steps quickly. And this is what I help my clients with as well. So, number 1, decide fast, refine later. Momentum isn't built on perfect plans. It's built on decision and action. So give yourself permission to make the best decision you can make with what you know right now. You can always refine once you're in motion. In fact, I remember at one point I was really stuck on a decision. I can't even, when I think about it, I don't even remember what the decision was. So it probably wasn't that consequential in the greater scheme of things. And this was probably about 10 years ago. And I was working with a mentor, a very intuitive mentor, and I told her this. I was stuck on this decision. And she said, Teri, what if this decision was no more important than deciding if you were going to put cream and sugar in your coffee? And she said, you would probably just decide, right? You probably would just say, yeah, I want that, or I don't want that. That's it. Treat this decision the same way. And the worst case scenario is you get a coffee you don't enjoy. So what if we could think of our decisions like that it's just as simple as deciding if you want cream and sugar in your coffee? Number 2, ask better questions. Perfection asks, what's the perfect step? Clarity asks, what's the next step? And that one shift removes the pressure and it creates movement forward. Movement forward is movement forward. Even if you make a mistake, you are going to still be in motion. So what's the next step? You don't have to have it all figured out. Just what's the next step? And number 3, use constraints. When you are spinning and overthinking, create boundaries. Creativity loves boundaries, by the way. People often say think outside the box, but thinking outside the box still implies that there is a box to begin with. So give yourself boundaries. For example, a 24-hour decision deadline, or a mini version of your idea that you can test quickly. A small experiment instead of a full launch. Constraints force action and they kill analysis paralysis. Now, here is what I want you to remember. Perfection is heavy, clarity is light. One will weigh you down, the other pulls you forward. So now let's do a little clarity reset exercise. I want to give you a tool that you can use anytime you feel yourself overthinking. Now, if you are driving while listening to this or doing anything which requires your conscious awareness and your eyes to be open, just listen with your eyes open. But if you can, if you are somewhere where it is safe to close your eyes, then close your eyes for this. And of course, if you are doing something that requires you to have your eyes open, you can come back and listen to this part later. I'll make sure it's tagged in the show notes in the chapter section so that you can easily find this section later on. Okay, so if you are able to close your eyes, if not, keep them open and take a deep breath in and then exhale slowly. And now imagine every unfinished task, every idea, every should as a box on a shelf in front of you. There might be dozens, maybe hundreds of boxes stacked up. This is your mental clutter. You don't need to open them all right now. In fact, you can't open them all right now. So, what I want you to do is take a scan of the shelf and choose just one box. Choose the one that matters most today. Reach for it. Feel the weight of it in your hands. And as you hold that box, I want you to notice the others starting to fade into the background. They're still there, but they don't need you right now. You have permission to set them aside. Now open this box, and inside is the next best step you need to take. Not the perfect step, just the next step. Take another deep breath in, exhale, and when you are ready, open your eyes and carry that one next step into your day. And that is the only thing you are going to do, that one next step. And only when that step is complete can you go back and open another box to get your next step. You can do this exercise anytime you need to. Another way you can do it is at night when you're getting sleepy and you're lying in your bed and you feel yourself starting to maybe drift off a little. Ask your unconscious mind to find the next step for you and to give you that clarity when you wake up in the morning. I often do this. I'll tell my unconscious mind, dear unconscious mind, I need you to work on this while I'm sleeping. And while I enjoy a deep and restful sleep, you're going to come up with the next step I need to take. When I wake up in the morning, show me what you got. And without fail, in the morning, I will have clarity on that next step. So clarity is always more profitable than perfection. Overthinking is just fear in disguise. And every time you feel yourself spinning in the what ifs, the should I, the shouldn't I, come back to this exercise. Choose that one box, one step. Now, I want to hear from you. What box did you open today? Leave me a comment below and let me know which box you opened. Thank you so much for being here today. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with another entrepreneur who you think is maybe stuck in that overthinking loop and would benefit from hearing this. And if you haven't already given this episode a thumbs up, please make sure that you do that. It helps me to grow this channel and reach more people, and I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much for being here today, and I will be back again next week. Bye for now, my friends.